Now, 6 and streaming on crossroadstoday.com, a small plane crash north of Dallas leaves 2 people dead and 1 person in the hospital. And the first presidential debate is tonight. We go over those rules this evening. Plus, the Victoria Police Department hosts a youth camp honoring the life of a 9-year-old.
We have a little tropical trouble. First, we have one depression in the Caribbean that will likely affect Mexico, and then we got the other one here, potential to become a tropical storm by next week. So we'll have the latest for you coming up in just a few minutes.
And a former Goliad standout competed in the U.S. Olympic pre-trials earlier this week. Her story in sports.
You're watching 25 News Now at 6. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Karina Garcia. Don Brubaker has the night off. 2 people died in a small plane crash just south of the McKinney National Airport this morning. 3 people were on board and the surviving victim was taken to a Dallas area hospital. A spokesperson from the city says the aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff. The FAA says data tied to the plane's tail number is registered to Hunger Relief Ministries based in Forney. The plane was manufactured in 1980 and was last certified in 2023. Corpus Christi police are investigating a human remains found Monday at the Prairie Place wastewater lift station on Lexington Road. City water employees discovered the remains around 3:30 p.m. while doing maintenance. Detectives are working to determine how the remains ended up at the station. Authorities say the body was too decomposed to determine the cause of death, but it shows no signs of homicide. The remains are being sent to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification for DNA analysis. Rip currents off the coast of Florida caused 8 deaths over a 4-day period. Among the victims is a 19-year-old and a couple from Pennsylvania. Authorities say the most recent death was reported Sunday when a 60-year-old Missouri woman got caught in a rip current near Panama City Beach. The National Weather Service says there have been 19 rip current related deaths so far this year. 8 deaths occurred in both Florida and Puerto Rico, 2 others in Texas, and there was 1 incident in Ohio. The Victoria Police Department hosts a youth camp every year since 2022. The camp has honored a 9-year-old whose dream was to join the force and get the bad guys off the street before she lost her life to cancer. 25 News Now reporter Darius McCormick has this story.
Cameron Lee was diagnosed with sarcoma cancer when she was only 9 years old. In 2022, her diagnosis took her life. Victoria Police Department honored Cameron at their youth police camp just 1 week later.
On the spur of the moment, one of our officers, he didn't even get it approved or asked or anything. At the awards ceremony, he said, "We are changing the name of this camp in honor of Cameron, which is going to be called Camp Cameron."
As her family grieved, they made sure to support the camp because Cameron's dream was to join Victoria Police Department. The VPD even gave her the title of an honorary officer.
I called family and I was like, you got to get up, we got to go to the community center. The awards ceremony is today and this is what they're doing.
Cameron's mother, Garcia, says this is more than just fun for the kids. It's opening the community's eyes about pediatric cancer.
They're still honoring Cameron and her legacy. And it brings awareness not only to the Victoria Police Department, but also to childhood cancer as well. And a lot of people don't realize that childhood cancer is not rare.
Garcia says Cameron was a fighter and a diva. She says if Cameron was still here, she would have done whatever it takes to participate in what we know as Camp Cameron. Reporting in Victoria, I'm Darius McCormick, KAVU-TV, 25 News Now.
Darius, thank you for that story. And with that, let's take a look at your forecast with First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, the bubble of heat that we had over us, about 2 weeks ago, it went up to the Midwest. Well, it came back down. You can see how everything's sort of going around it. But right now, that's very important. You know why? Because we've got 2 tropical systems out there, and this may have a lot to do with where that's going. So we'll have the latest for you and take a real close look at that tropical activity that may become the first tropical storm of the season by next week. All that coming up in just a moment. Back to you.
Mac, thank you. The first presidential debate of the 2024 election is set for tonight. This is the first time a debate is between a former and current president.
Today, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are bringing the heat to this late June debate stage in Atlanta, the earliest ever in a campaign season. After arriving in Atlanta this afternoon, the president greeting crowds of chanting supporters who had gathered pre-debate. To prepare, President Biden has spent the past several days hunkered down at Camp David, holding mock debates with senior advisors. Former President Trump has held more than a dozen policy sessions with advisors and allies, but publicly downplays his approach.
I think I've been preparing for it for my whole life, if you want to know the truth. I'm not sure you can lock yourself into a room for 2 weeks or 1 week or 2 days and really learn what you have to know.
Tonight's 90-minute debate will be unlike any other. Candidates will stand 8 feet apart with no studio audience. The candidates' microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak, muted when it's not. CNN today demonstrating how that will work.
He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking, and this is what it will sound like. My volume remains constant, while Phil's interruption can be difficult to understand.
The goal of that microphone silencing is to avoid chaotic shouting matches like this 4 years ago.
The question is, radical left.
Still up for grabs, the opportunity to win over millions of voters who say they don't like their choices. A new 538 Ipsos poll asked who people would consider voting for, meaning they could choose more than one candidate.
They don't get above 45%, either one of them. I'm struck by the number, though, for Bobby Kennedy Jr. That's almost 1 in 5 voters who say they may consider voting for the third-party candidate, even though he's not on the stage tonight.
Polling has been consistent when it comes to the top issues. So topics you can expect them to dive into tonight are the economy, immigration, political extremism, and abortion rights. Trump has polled stronger in the top 2 categories. Biden has the edge in the next 2. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Atlanta.
And local political expert Woodrow Wilson Wagner II shares his thoughts on what to expect from this historical debate. Wagner says the critical debate is more unorthodox than others in the past. These new rules, like no audience and microphone muting, surely changes the back and forth. Wagner believes the candidate who can connect the most with moderate voters will take home the November election.
Both candidates can't just speak to their bases. They can't just speak to the people that are super MAGA or super liberal. They've got to speak to those people that are in the middle.
Wagner believes Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are the states that will decide this debate, seeing as they are considered moderate. Tune in to CNN's presidential debate tonight at 8 on CNN. So here is your viewer poll. You can scan that QR code right there on your screen to vote. The question is, do you plan on watching the presidential debate tonight? Yes or no? According to our results tonight, it looks like 72% stand at yes, and the remaining 28% stand at no. Thank you for voting. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part. And I'm going to have an update on 25 News Now at 10. Now, for more on today's news stories, come to crossroadstoday.com. 25 News Now will provide live coverage of the CNN presidential debate, along with ABC News pre and post debate analysis starting at 7 p.m. You can also watch the CNN presidential debate on Crossroads Today Plus and on our website, plus on all our streaming platforms. The Supreme Court will allow doctors in Idaho to perform abortions in emergency situations for now. Idaho law allows abortions only when the life of the pregnant mother is in danger. The Biden administration argues care should include abortions to preserve a woman's health. In a 6-3 ruling, the court left in place a lower court ruling allowing emergency abortions. Now remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click that notification bell. For now, stay with us. One town in Massachusetts divided over the rehoming of migrants. Coming up on 25 News Now at 6, we hear from concerned residents. Also ahead, major drugstore chain Walgreens now set to close a number of stores. We take a look at those numbers next. Hundreds of migrants who came to the United States via a human smuggling network could have some connection with ISIS. Two U.S. officials say the discovery of the Department of Homeland Security prompted an additional review of 400 migrants, mostly from Central Asian nations. The official says the human smuggling network in question has ties to the same network that brought over a group of nationals across the southern border last summer, and the facilitator had connections to ISIS. Now, the first migrant families have moved into an emergency shelter at a prison in Massachusetts. It's the state's latest attempt to try to ease that migrant crisis, but the move has divided the town as some residents are concerned that it will strain their resources.
This is completely out of control.
A few dozen folks gathered at the center of town, pushing back against the state's plan to move 450 migrant and unhoused people into the old Bay State Correctional Center. But by Wednesday afternoon, town leaders say about 70 people, 22 families, were the first to move in.
It's not safe, this situation. Psychologically, these women who are pregnant with children, I mean, welcome to America, we're throwing you in a prison.
There is just one ambulance here, one gas station, and no grocery stores. Norfolk has about 11,000 residents, and there are questions over impacts to town services.
It's like Boston getting 25,000 people. You know, that's a 4.5% population increase overnight.
Benjamin Sprague is a father of two Norfolk public school students. The town has been told up to 150 children will need classroom placement. The trouble is, the town says they don't have the space.
There's no music room anymore. They have to do music inside the classroom. So how are they going to adjust to have that many children enter into the school system and not have an impact on everything else?
The crowd had a mix of Norfolk residents and out-of-town Trump supporters. Opinions ran the gamut for a polarized topic that's about as hot as they come.
I am upset. I'm angry.
And then we found Gretchen. She grew up here and served in that church over her shoulder. Gretchen made it clear she doesn't have all the answers, but called for compassion in the pursuit to figure it out.
What is American for? It's a whole bunch of immigrants that came here. And then we turn around and we say, oh, we don't like you because of the color of your skin or whatever, or your background. It's just not fair. It's just not just.
Walgreens is set to close a substantial number of its roughly 8,600 locations across the U.S. This comes as the drugstore chain looks to reset its struggling business. Walgreens did not announce a specific number of store closures, but major drugstore chains have lost money in recent years because of declining profits from filling prescriptions. That's due to lower reimbursement rates for prescription drugs, as well as new competition from mail-order pharmacies. And 25 News Now anchor Don Brubaker is in Ireland, where he made a stop at a church in downtown Dublin. That's the capital of the nation, and here's what he saw.
Greetings from Ireland. We are here with a great bunch of people. The Alpaskas are here from Victoria, and we checked out downtown Dublin this morning. And now, after that, we checked out Christ Church Cathedral, which was founded in the early 11th century by a Viking king. The building was extensively renovated and rebuilt in the late 19th century, giving it the form it has today, including the tower, a distinctive covered footbridge, and a crypt. Joseph, what did you think about all of that in that old castle?
Well, we've been to Europe and we've seen lots of big churches and cathedrals, but it was awesome. It really was. Yeah. Yep.
And it is awesome to have y'all with us in this. And we have more reports coming soon. Reporting from Ireland, I'm Don Brubaker, KVU TV 25 News Now.
Thank you very much. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Lots of sunshine, warmth, and humidity around there. Right about now, our temperature is still at 93. It feels like 109. Our heat index was at 110 today, so we were probably perspiring out there. High temperature is right at, or very close to our average temperature, so it's summer hot, as I like to say. We've been as warm as 103, but in the tropics, we've got two systems that we're going to have to watch very carefully, and we'll talk about that coming up after this. Well, good afternoon, everyone. For the next couple of days, I mean, here we are. It's weekend, right? And next week, or next weekend, is 4th of July. We have a fairly quiet afternoon here in the Crossroads, but just north of us, right on I-45, a cluster of storms actually popped late this afternoon, and they're dropping southward. They are decreasing, but I think maybe Hallettsville and those areas might see some of that. If you remember the big old heat wave that we had a couple weeks ago that went up to the Midwest, well, it's actually back down, and it's bringing the heat back to the southwest. You can see how everything's sort of spinning around in this fashion. That is very important to know where that's going to be, because next week we got some tropical trouble that we're going to have to look at. Now, here is a closer look at the storm. You can see how it is sort of falling apart, but getting close to the Brenham, really, and then Schulenburg would be after that. So if you're heading in that direction, you might run into that. Otherwise, let's take a look at the tropics. So we've got two systems. One is right here in the Caribbean. It is just north of Central America. This one is still an investigative area. It's beginning to organize, and it is likely to roll into Belize, then cross the peninsula there, and then eventually roll into southern Mexico near Veracruz. That's pretty good. That's very likely. Now, this one is the problem. This one is out in the mid-Atlantic. It's got plenty of room to run, plenty of room to strengthen. In fact, the computer models are taking this into a hurricane sometime Monday, Tuesday of next week. Now, what's the path? The path, as I've mentioned, is very far south right about now. But as you can see right about here, that would be your Thursday, then Friday right about here, then Saturday, and then by Sunday, approaching the Lesser Antilles, or the little bitty islands, and probably as a tropical storm. Then it gets into the Caribbean, where it's likely to strengthen to a hurricane. Is it going to be the Northern Caribbean, Southern Caribbean? Is it going to go this way or that way? Well, that's 7 to 8 days from now, and I'm not going to commit on that until I get a better fix on the computer models. Right now, let's just say the following. It could be the Yucatan, it could be Florida. And after that, it's the Gulf of Mexico. So in about 10 or 11 days, we're going to know what this thing's going to do. This will be barreled, very likely will be barreled by maybe even Sunday, Monday. Our temperature tomorrow, about 93 on your Friday. Things are looking pretty good for us. You saw the rest of the state is going to be in the hundreds. We already have heat advisories from just north of the Crossroads all the way up into Kansas, as the heat wave is being caused by the bubble that's now on top of us. So your day planner for tomorrow in Port Lavaca, getting up to 92 degrees, maybe one or two isolated errant showers in the afternoon. If you're out in Cuero, you're getting up to 94, couple of isolated showers possible, very few, but possible. And then this moisture that we've got here right now is really kind of left over from Alberto, but that's slowly drying out. And early next week, we've got it hot and dry, unless Beryl comes to town, and then we're going to change that forecast. So we will certainly have all the latest for you coming up right here every afternoon. Join us then. That's your 7-day forecast, reminding everybody we do have a QR code. If you scan that, you can put Crossroads Today on your phone. And here's Karina.
Thank you, Mac. And now here's Zach Brown with your sports.
A former Goliad Tigerette competed in the U.S. Olympic pre-trials earlier this week. Her story in sports. She's from Goliad and just finished her Olympic pre-trials earlier this week. While she did not make the U.S. Olympic team, sports director Max Williams tells her remarkable story.
Former Goliad standout Ashton Zamzo-Mahler just competed in the U.S. Olympic pre-trials in the heptathlon in Eugene, Oregon. She finished 9th out of 16 competitors. Although Zamzo-Mahler didn't qualify for the Paris 2024 Olympics, her journey to get here required a lot of perseverance. Mahler suffered a major calf injury 2 years ago. While she may be pain-free now, the injury changed everything on the track.
To running and throwing, not really jumping. And even then, the calf this year in March and in April, it just started getting tight on me again to where I couldn't really practice anymore. And it got so bad to a meet in May, I couldn't even throw the javelin. And so I was crying at a track. This is my all-time low. I was crying at a track meet. I was like, I won't be able to get into the trial.
With his injury still lingering on her, Zamzo-Mahler had to find a way to get back to the Olympic trials. So she contacted her trainer in Eugene, Oregon, who recommended a world-class therapist to help out. What was the main issue with her calf?
What's going on? He goes, I have the perfect therapist for you. She is who I believe to be the world's best therapist. And so I said, okay, set me up. And so thankfully I got a few appointments with her in Oregon. So I flew up that next week. She saw me. She knew what was wrong, so she fixed me, but it would take some time for my body to get used to. Turns out it was a mechanical thing. Since I tore my calf, I ended up running differently, and that's what caused all the issues.
She comes from a strong track background. Her father's been the girls' head coach at Goliad for 22 years, where he once coached Ashton. After all these years, he feels very proud of everything she has accomplished.
From coaching Ashton, which was a long time ago, I turned those reins over a long time ago to her husband, Wolf, who's done an absolute wonderful job, and watching the things that she did. But, just trying to teach them to never quit, to never give in, to take every opportunity and every moment and enjoy it.
In all, Zamzo's family appreciates all the support from Goliad County and Southern Texas communities. This is Max Williams, KAVU TV 25 News Now Sports.
In the Generals back in action tonight, Max Williams was at Riverside with more on the home team.
Victoria Generals went 16-7 in the first half of the season, looking back to get on the win column here tonight, here at Riverside. The end of the first half of the year, winners of 14 of their last 17 ball games. They were also an offensive powerhouse, scoring the most runs at 140. They also had the most base knocks and second to most base on balls this season. Their pitching was also dominant with a 3.94 earned run average. As well as great hitting and pitching is always a recipe for winning ball. But now that it's over, the second half of the year begins tonight, where the Generals welcome in the Acadian Cane Cutters into town. The Generals have knocked Acadian off the last 4 times they have played. Most recently faced each other last week. Victoria won 6-1 and then 6-2. First pitch is scheduled here at 7:05 p.m. here at Riverside Stadium. Reporting from Riverside Stadium, this is Max Williams, KAVU TV 25 News Now Sports.
All right, well, that is it for your sports. Karina, back to you.
Thanks, Zach. We're going to be back in a moment. A 97-year-old Brewers fan set to throw the first pitch this weekend. That story and one last look at your weather next. A lifelong Milwaukee Brewers fan is getting the chance of a lifetime this weekend. She will be throwing out the first pitch. 97-year-old Catherine Halber was chosen through the team's Superfan program after her son nominated her. She says she remembers listening to Brewers games on the radio when she was a young girl. Since she is now legally blind, she continues to follow her team on the radio.
Tell you what, the Astros got a lot of injuries on the pitching staff. Look at her. Look at that arm,
You want to
dude.
put her out first?
Probably use her, yeah.
I think you should give her.
Arrighetti, the former Victoria General, a great 1-2 punch right there.
I think you should give that old lady a few pointers, though.
You think so? I'll knock her out of the ballpark. If pitches to me, man.
Excuse me, we're having too much fun here. Folks, for the next few days, the weekend, lots of sun, lots of heat, lots of humidity. It feels like summertime because we're turning the corner into July. Can you believe it? And of course, next week is 4th of July. At this point in time, it looks pretty good, a little warm, but no major problems. Of course, we have two systems in the tropics that may have something to say about all that, and we'll certainly have the latest for you coming up later tonight.
Alrighty, thank you, Mac, and thank you for joining us. We hope to see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 10.